Greetings. My name is Reverend Adam Nicholas Phillips. I'm a dear friend of Portsmouth Union, even though I have not been in a bit. And I'm really grateful to join you on this MLK Sunday, this time of new possibilities all around us. I'm going to read the passage this morning for our reflections out of the Gospel of John, chapter 1, 43 to 51. I'm reading in the Common English Bible, and let this be a way for us to root down and center our thoughts. The next day, Jesus wanted to go into Galilee, and he found Philip. Jesus said to him, "Follow me." Philip was from Bethsaida, the hometown of Andrew and Peter. Philip found Nathanael and said to him, "We have found the one Moses wrote about in the law and the prophets, Jesus, Joseph's son, from Nazareth." Nathanael responded, "Can anything from Nazareth be good?" Philip said, "Come and see." Jesus saw Nathanael coming toward him and said about him, "Here is a genuine Israelite in whom there is no deceit." Nathanael asked him, "How do you know me?" Jesus answered, "Before Philip called you, I saw you under the fig tree." Nathanael replied, "Rabbi, you are God's son. You are the King of Israel." Jesus answered, "Do you believe because I told you that I saw you under the fig tree? You will see greater things than these. I assure you that you will see heaven open and God's angels going up to heaven and down to earth on the human one." Let's pray. God, on this Sunday, this January 17th, this Sunday early still in the new year, we ask that you help us breathe in and breathe out and catch new glimmers of truth and wisdom so that we may follow you a bit more closely in these days. In the name of Christ, in all the holy names of God. Amen. I love this Sunday. In some ways, because it's just another Sunday early in the new year, and we're getting on track to begin the fullness of 2021. No, it's not the 13th month of 2020. It's the beginning of a new year still. And I think about this day as another Sunday in January, and this opportunity to have another on-ramp to new beginnings, right? I don't know if you're like me, but I don't really do resolutions anymore because I know that I quickly forget them or I don't do them, and then I feel guilty for it and shame and all the things. But I do think it's good to take on new intentions, to set new ways in which we might live a bit better. So I love these opportunities for on-ramps. Of course, if you do resolutions, New Year's Day, it's a new day, it's a new year. You resolve to do things differently. And then for those of us that kind of need a little bit more time, we have, at least in the church calendar, we have Epiphany, which is the Sunday early on, where we see stars of light and hope, and we think about the Magi, and we think about the promises of this human one born in God's image and flesh and blood and bone, and this holy family, this Mary and Joseph, and now this third part of this family, this Yeshua, this Jesus of Nazareth. And we think about the journey that they will take together as this family. But then quickly, another Sunday later, we have the baptism of Christ. So Jesus is quickly growing up. We don't have a lot of time here. We got to get on with the story, right? In this sense that Jesus takes the waters of baptism from John in the River Jordan. In the sense that there is a real new inauguration of calling and purpose and reality. We think about all of these things as we continue marching on through new days. So today, the second Sunday of Epiphany, happens also to be MLK Sunday, where we remember the birth of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and this call to service. Some of us might call it action and contemplation. How might we reflect on the movement for civil rights, for equity, for beloved community, for justice? And if you're like me, you think to yourself, well, I don't know if I can be a Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., right? And I don't know if I want to be. But we know that this story of MLK Day is also the story of a bigger beloved community, a bigger movement of names and faces and figures that we'd never really know about unless we heard the stories or we read the stories. So we think folks like Septima Clark, this educator who later in life had a second kind of vocation into the civil rights movement. We also think too of Reverend Edwin King, a white pastor who was kind of known as a theological prankster, but deeply committed and deeply focused on equity and justice and human rights. So we think about all of these things on this Sunday, this consequential moment in our nation's history, even too, when we think about the Wednesdays of this month, right? Two Wednesdays ago, we had the insurrection on the nation's capital in DC. And on those same steps, we're going to have the presidential inauguration this coming Wednesday. And of course, these are things happening sort of in far off places, but these are things happening at the heart of our shared life together and our sense of what is going on in our shared history. So I love that we have this moment on MLK Sunday in the season of Epiphany to think about inaugurating new beginnings. So I want to think about the story in the Gospel of John again, because what I love about it is that it's quite crafty, actually. There's this big sense of we need to follow this miracle worker, this Jesus, right? Phillips saying, we found the one Moses wrote about in the law and the prophets, Jesus. He's Joseph's son from Nazareth. This big, big, big moment. But I actually like reading this story and hearing the story in more grittier ways, right? In more skeptical ways, right? In ways that kind of reflect, I think, a healthy skepticism of heroes and movements. That's why I love Nathaniel. His friend Phillips says, no, you got to come and see this guy. He's the one. But Nathaniel's like, can anything from Nazareth be good? Can anything good come out of Nazareth? For those of us in North Portland, I think we resonate with that idea. Like, can anything good come out of North Portland? Can anything good come out of St. John's, Portsmouth, Kenton? The answer, of course, is yes. Not just good, but greater than good. So Jesus kind of gets the vibe here. Jesus, I think, kind of understands that there's going to be healthy skeptics. And these are not going to be the ordinary folks. The ordinary folks that the myth makers want us to think about, the superhero movie writers want us to think about, these greater than life figures. No, it's even sort of greater than that. Nathaniel, skeptic, his friend Philip, they're hanging out under a fig tree. Jesus sees them and comes and says, come, see, just come follow me for a bit. You will see greater things than this. And I assure you that you will see heaven open and God's angels going up to heaven and down to earth on the human one. Kind of interesting. I could see Nathaniel saying, all right, I'll come see this. You know, the thing about Jesus is that he's not your ordinary sort of miracle worker. And Nathaniel and Philip and people like this had seen these sort of snake oil salesmen come and go in their day. And they were just thinking, like, another one of these? Really? Is this really the one? Philip says, yes, it is. Nathaniel, I think, is a little bit more skeptical, as I said. but he's here for it. So he follows. And I think there's something intriguing about this Jesus, the human one, right? Who knows that it's going to take ordinary folk like Nathaniel and Philip, ordinary, unknown folk like Septima and Edwin, to be part of this unfolding of God's story, this cosmic mystery of God's love and light for the whole world. So he calls them. He calls them. So they follow. I think about the call too, right? What is the call? What is the call of this one Jesus, who, the human one, who comes to say, I want you to see greater things? I think the call is not so much to like words, specific perfect words and teachings and doctrines and dogmas to go and tell other people, to make sure that they know that if you say these words right, or if you memorize these words right, and if you think about these words right, then you will be part of this like heavenly club, right? No, I don't think that's what the call is at all. I think that the call of Jesus, the human one, is to be agents of love and hope and possibility, and to be radical optimists, as the late Catholic theologian Bernice Brutteau might say. Radical optimists, to see the way of the world and to see how dark and troubling and hard and traumatic and divided it is, and yet to still follow in the footsteps of the human one, to still go and see and maybe even do, to have this radical kingdom posture, right? Of this idea that that if this Jesus is inaugurating new beginnings, and if you go and read another gospel, Luke 4, you'll see that this Jesus is about radical change, flipping things upside down, helping those that are at the lowest rungs of human society become centrally important and, in fact, the top of the chain. This idea of radical change, radical optimism, that we can be about this, we can do this, right? And it's not just going to be the superhero, the Superman, the one that can see into the future and know your heart and all this stuff, right? Just to know you before he's even talked to you under the fig tree. But that this Jesus is this one that's going to gather with him ordinary folks to be about radically big and beautiful things. So the question is, can anything good come out of Nazareth? Of course. Can anything good come out of Portsmouth? Yes. Anything good come out of Portland? Of course. Please. We need the best of Portsmouth. We need the best of Kenton, St. John's, Northern, Oregon. Especially in these times, right? How might we be radical optimists when it's getting so hot in here, right? I mean, when we think about climate change, last year, 2020, the year where everything shut down for almost the entire year, and where there were less cars on the road, factories weren't working at fullest capacity, not as many airplanes flying around, and yet it was still the hottest year on record, even amidst COVID. It was also the hottest year on record for a number of other reasons, right? We think about all of the division, we think about all of the crises, we think about the insurrection, we think about policing, we think about all of the heartache of last year. It's getting very difficult to be radical optimists in this season of life, right? So the question for us is, how might we root down in new ways? How might we look for and be about fresh expressions of our beloved community together? I love how this passage in John ends. Jesus says, I assure you that you will see greater things than this. It reminds me of a passage later in the Gospel of John, chapter 14, when Jesus says, you will do even greater things than me. What kind of hero is this? The heroes of our day, they want to be celebrities on pedestals. They want to be larger than life. They want to make you feel like you're dependent on them for all things. But Jesus is saying, no, 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 not that. You're part of the beloved community. Each one of you, each one of us has something integral to do. Each one of us is integral to the story. Each one of us has some sort of radical imprint of God's design for this world, and we get to be part of it. There's no them, there's only us. And so at the beginning of the story, when he's calling people like Philip and Nathaniel to follow him, and then as the story proceeds, and there's Mary Magdalene and so many other amazing figures in the story that we don't even know, right? That weren't even recorded in these stories. Near the end of it, in John 14, he says, I know we've seen some things, and I know you think that I'm the one, the critical part of this whole story, but no, you will do even greater things than me. So, my friends, what's the call in your life right now to inaugurate a new beginning? Because we need you. We don't need you to do things that you're not equipped to do. We need you to do the things that God has given you to do. And I think that if we go into our inner life, if we have kind of an inward journey, we might find outwardly how to join in. So, of course, we've got to kind of catch our breath. We're going to call our therapist. Got to make room for this newness that's happening in our lives. And then we might find ways in which we can just put one foot in front of the other and follow the human one. Follow the Christ that came to be about this radically optimistic change, even though the evidence doesn't seem very good. So on this MLK Day, as we reflect on ways to serve and be about radical change, maybe we can take certain ideas of what it looks like to be about change, to be change agents off the pedestals, and then find our footing right here in the story here in Portsmouth and in Portland, and think about ways in which we might do greater things. Not in arrogant ways, of course, but in ways that are crucial and needed. So I invite each and every one of us to catch our breath, because the world needs us. The world needs us more than ever. Be safe, be healthy, and be loved. Amen.